Section 3, P3 Energy Resources Compulsory Homework. Here shows a solar thermal power station. Now, along the ground here, you have mirrors. So all of these things that are scattered on sitting on the ground are mirrors. And what they are doing is the um, solar energy is hitting those mirrors, bouncing off those mirrors and hitting this solar receiver. So this thing here is getting hot and it's absorbing all of those solar rays pointing in towards this center here, like if it was a magnifying glass and you try to burn something with a magnifying glass using the sun's rays. This is kind of a slightly different technique, but reflecting solar rays off mirrors and heading towards here. So in this scenario, you're not necessarily using light as your normal solar panels and then converting that into electricity. All you're doing here is light is hitting these mirrors, bouncing off, and then is creating heat, and that's thermal energy from infrared radiation. So um, suggest one reason why solar thermal power station is built in a hot desert. Um, you got high levels of infrared radiation, um, i.e., allow lots of solar energy available. Um, so they want you to use specific terminology instead of heat. You meant to be using the term infrared radiation. This idea that it's hot or lots of sunlight is not really linked to this particular question. Lots of sunlight, that would be solar panels that produce electricity. This, all it's doing, reflecting heat of the sun and bouncing it towards a different position. So here you would get a mark for either saying high levels of infrared radiation or lots of solar energy available. Okay, so complete the following sentence to describe how the mirrors direct energy from the sun towards the solar receiver. So energy from the sun is reflected by the mirrors as we've discussed earlier. Um, Now filling the gaps, as the solar receiver, water is heated in a boiler which turns water into steam. The steam turns a turbine which is connected to a water into steam. That there does not make any sense. So I would ignore this. I'm going to highlight it. I'm a little, I'm not sure as to what, sorry, this section here doesn't make much sense, so I would ignore that there. The steam turns a turbine which is connected to a generator. The generator produces electricity. A transformer, this is after the electricity has been produced, is used to change the voltage, and then that electricity ends up going towards your homes via the power lines. So after the power station and before the power lines, there's this thing called transformer, and that transfers energy around the the country, the area. Part B, you have a solar storage power station can supply a town with a maximum electrical power of 140,000 kilowatts for 15 hours. Calculate the maximum kilowatt hour storage by the solar storage power station. This unit of kilowatt hours, what that is saying here is it is the kilowatts multiplied by the hours. Okay, so it's the kilowatts multiplied by the hours. So you've got 140,000 kilowatts times by 15 hours, and energy is also measured in this unit kilowatt hours, and that's 2.1 million. How did we get that? We did 140,000 multiplied by 15 hours, and what we got was 2.1 million kilowatt hours, and that is the energy in kilowatt hours. Now, if that is new, which it is most likely, not to worry, it is no longer part of our syllabus to use kilowatt hours as form of energy. So you can ignore part B. Part C, a different method of generating electricity uses wind turbines. A student researching a wind farm wrote the following. So this is what the student wrote. Top Hill Wind Farm has 25 wind turbines. Last week, one of the wind turbines generated electricity only for 42 hours out of the possible 168 hours that was available. My conclusion that is that all the wind turbines operate for only 25% of the time. So you've got 42 hours divided by 168, and if we do that calculation, does that actually give you 25%? Well, it is 25% of the total hours. Okay, so that 42 out of 168 does match a 25%. Okay, so give two reasons why the student is not correct in reaching his conclusion. Okay, so we did say that 25% is 42 hours out of 168, but that would mean um, that we made the assumption that all of the wind turbines have been operating. So one, you could say only one wind turbine was considered. So if you look carefully here, one of the wind turbines, so I'm just going to highlight that in the question. Okay, um, I can't highlight it, but one of the wind turbines generated for 25% of the time. So that is not all 25 wind turbines. So the 25 wind turbines may have done more or less. So is that they've made the conclusion that all of the wind turbines have operated for 25% of the time. They only looked at one of the wind turbines, or the wind turbines may have generated more electricity. So yes, other wind turbines may have generated more electricity. Only 1 week's weather was reported on. Wind speed varies from 1 week to another. That is your second mark. So this idea that last week um, we had this data taken, um, that's not necessarily going to be the same every week. So those are your two marking points. Give one reason why the wind turbines do not generate electricity all the time. And this is quite a straightforward question. Wind speed sometimes is very high, so the wind turbines don't turn very well, or low. So you could have said there's no wind, or it's very windy, and wind is unreliable, or wind is variable. To any one of those five different points could have given you 1 mark. And the final part, give one advantage of using wind turbines to generate electricity compared to fossil fuel power stations. Now there are many here, so we've got 10 different possibilities that you could have said. So ranging from the emissions, from the idea that it's renewable, the idea that it doesn't contribute to global warming, climate change, acid rain, and that's an advantage of wind turbines. So this is talking about an advantage of wind turbines, not a disadvantage of power stations. So all of these 10 possibilities could have been an answer. This idea of no pollution, that's we need to be specific, a little bit more detailed. That will not give you an answer. So that was the only one that was not allowed. All of these 10 are possibilities.